professional excellence, that's really the foundation for it. So I'd invite your comments on that, but that's really just kind of my personal hope and dream for all of our professional communities. My question relates to the point, Charlie, that you raised about measurement. And we all have the drive for metrics. If any of the panelists have thoughts about how best to measure this qualitative, somewhat amorphous process and phenomenon, I'd be most grateful. Thank you.
I wish I could. Even the Army's struggling, so it makes me feel a little bit better when people with a $40 million budget tell us they're struggling, but we're going to crack the nut.
Well, if you have too much money, then you measure things. I used to say, Nancy, that people used to ask me, what does it take to succeed in the Foreign Service? You know, you often get involved in helping junior officers kind of get settled and so forth. And I used to say it was three things to succeed in the Foreign Service. You didn't need to be the world's greatest next George Kennan. You didn't actually need to be, a deep in the economic field. You didn't have to be John Maynard Keynes. You needed three things all across all cones to be really good as a Foreign Service officer, make a real contribution. One, you have to be good with people, because it's a people job. And that certainly applies to managing stress, because essentially as a leader, you're managing others in difficult situations and listening to their nonverbal cues. And even as a peer, you're helping with your colleagues. And of course, it's a people business. Second, you have to write well. We'll put that aside unless we're into writing for the website. And the third thing I used to say was you had to have extraordinary stamina. That the Foreign Service, most of the time, it's a 9-to-5 job in Washington, and it's a 9-to-7 job or a 9-to-9 job abroad. But when there's a crisis, you're working 18, 20 hours at a whack. You're out there with the C-130s come in with the stuff and managing it. And I think all those three still remain. But I think the fourth is, for a successful Foreign Service officer, is have to be able to manage and handle stress. And whatever coping mechanisms work. And pretending it doesn't exist is not a way of handling stress. Right. And stress comes anywhere. I mean, I was in Athens, and someone put a rocket into the side of the embassy. It was a member of the EU. There's no place where there aren't threats and dangers. And if we are going to succeed and represent the country around the world as we're supposed to and want to do, we need to be able to manage these kinds of things. And that's what the entire system, including post-management, FSI, and the Resilience Hub need to be all about, is helping us be better at that.
I guess my only additional point would be, I think this is a step even though we don't have quantitative data, I think this is a step in the right direction in the sense that we're expanding the community that's talking about this. So I think everyone has something to contribute to the conversation, and we can all certainly learn from one another. The DoD has been mentioned, State Department, USAID, our implementing partners, our local staff, and at least OTI sees this community growing, institutionalizing it based upon what you were talking about has been kicked off in October. And so I really hope that this continues the conversation about how we can start to measure this a bit more to feed into the larger conversation.
Yes, I would like to add something more. There are 2 self-assessments within the platform that you can take to assess what are your resilience levels and then what are your stress levels. Of course, this platform is anonymous. Therefore, we are not, of course, capturing information, statistical information about what is the average resilience level or the average stress level within those that are using the platform. But it could be used, or that information could be used to monitor what are things, what is happening around with everyone who's using it. I would not recommend that, since part of the purpose of this platform is that people use it anonymously and just benefit from it.
Also not random.
Also not random.
That's the challenge. That's why the Army has a leg up, because they've got all this data on people anyway. And so, like, they know everything about their soldiers. And so they have an advantage. In the foreign affairs community, sorry, you're just not going to give me that. And so, I mean, that is one of the challenges to measurement. But again, we're going to crack the nut. It's a priority. It's important. And we're going to figure out how to do it.
I'm afraid we only have time for one question, and this lady's been waiting a long time. But after we close, the panelists, I'm sure, wouldn't mind sticking around for a few minutes and answering your questions individually. Go ahead.
Thank you. I feel very honored. I'm Deborah Mancini. I'm a consultant. And I just wanted to come back to the institutional opening that many of you have mentioned, which is wonderful. Now, the ultimate measure of an institutional change would probably be if this is somehow integrated in the staff performance reviews.
Yeah.
And so that goes back to the question, how do we measure it, but also how do we reward it? I would be very interested, and that seems very difficult because you don't want to start encouraging people to have mental health issues. So have you thought about this, and what are possible ways to think about that? Thank you.
So the State Department promulgated a couple of years ago some leadership and management principles, and fostering resilience is one of those principles. And so in the promotion of those leadership principles, they've actually incorporated them into the hiring process. Someone committed to fostering resilience among 9 other principles, and encouraging people to address it in their evaluations. But here's the reality, and here's the message we try to get across. You don't have to write specifically about it in the evaluation that, oh, this manager mentored an employee through a challenge with resilience. You look at the accomplishments. A manager and a leader who actively fosters the resilience of their team, who mentors others in resilience and models resilience, will get more accomplishments than other leaders. And that's what's reflected in the EER. And those individuals will hopefully get promoted faster. And that's why at FSI, we're looking at every level of employee, and we're cultivating our resilience champions. I might take someone who's mid-ranked right now and work with them in hopes that they'll be an ambassador one day, and they'll be championing why fostering resilience and why being a leader who prioritizes resilience has helped them accomplish the foreign policy goals that they wouldn't have accomplished otherwise. To me, that's the secret. And so while someone may not write it specifically in an evaluation, I believe at the deepest of my heart that resilience means success, and it's the success that will distinguish the resilience leaders from the others.
Okay. Well, thank you to all of you for coming. Thank you for all who made it possible. AFSA, Alan Saunders, Emma Fawcett of the Cox Foundation. Thank you, Rachel, Beth, Charlie, for your service. Thank you, Andres, for your study and for the website. Thank you to IPSI, Creative Learning, ADST, FSI, Director McEldowney. I said AFSA. And thank you for joining us. Take care.